Understanding money is one of the most important parts of building generational wealth. And in my opinion, one of the best ways to do that is to read the book, The Bitcoin Standard. I'm going to talk about a few of the points that the book makes that are very unique to understanding money. But before I do that, I just want to ask you to subscribe to the channel and to leave a like. All right, so I'm going to talk about the Bitcoin Standard. Now, this is for sure the most popular book about Bitcoin that has ever existed, but it's more than just a book about Bitcoin. A lot of it goes into just how money works, how it was developed, kind of how it's evolved to the dollar, all these different aspects. And it is really important to understand how those things came into play. But one of the main parts of it is that Bitcoin, if you want to invest in it, it can be a very nerve-wracking experience because you do have to be okay with the highs and the lows. But what makes it easier is having a lot of conviction that it is the best asset. And once you really understand money, it becomes more of a sure bet for you and doesn't feel as much of a risk. So I'm going to go into this book. All right, first, and per usual, I have my notes here just to keep me on track. All right, so first it was written or was published in 2018. The guy's name is Saifedean Ammous. I believe I am saying that correctly. If not, sorry, dude, I messed up your name. But it is definitely considered I don't know, no, I'm not going to say Bible, but the most important book when it comes to understanding Bitcoin. All right, and I'm just going to get into a few points that it makes. And these are unique points that really make you think hard about money. All right, so the first one is that money determines how society thinks. So there's something called easy money and hard money. Easy money is money that is readily available or easy to duplicate. That's pretty much, dollars. He talks about other money, other ways people use money in parts of the book that I'm going to talk about a little in the second point. But it's basically money that can be made easily. Hard money are things that are rarities. So you can think about gold, silver, just anything that cannot be replicated at scale. And Bitcoin does fall into that category. And his argument is that the more access people have to easy money, the more careless they are. Because it's almost a mindset that there's more where it came from. So a lot of debt, just using the money more, careless spending, all those things become embedded in the actual society. And then with hard money, it's the opposite because people understand how valuable the asset is. So they're a little bit more careful. They guard it with more intensity. So they actually want the asset to last and they think very hard about it. So his argument is that society is better when there is hard money involved over easy money. All right, so the second point that I have is he talks about survival of the strongest when it comes to money. And this was the most interesting part of the book to me, was how past societies used things that were easily accessible as currency. So he talked about shells, how societies used shells, how some used beads. And his argument was that once these things started to devalue because of their accessibility, it moved on to a better money. So I remember one thing about the beads was it was more like societies that weren't a little bit more, advanced. they would use beads for barter and to buy things. And what ended up happening is societies in other countries started to replicate those beads. So it lost all its value. And that was the main catalyst for the society's money collapsing. And he goes on to talk about all these other ways that this happened. And then he argued that from there, from shells, beads, it evolved into metal. And then metal, it was a survival of the strongest because, of course, gold became the most valuable, and that's because it's the least accessible. It's hard to duplicate. Well, you can't duplicate it, and it takes a lot of work to get access to it. So people have to actually mine it. It's not easily available. Then silver falls a little bit under that, but all the other metals are a little bit more prevalent. So his argument is that money is good until something else beats it. Okay, so the argument is Bitcoin is better than the dollar. All right, so at some point, Bitcoin will be the standard instead of gold. And to be honest, the gold standard doesn't even exist anymore. And that's because government is greedy. And in 1971, they decided that they wanted to have the most power over it. So we moved off the gold standard into the dollar standard. And that completely changed everything. And that's when they started printing money like crazy. And that's how inflation started going crazy. And that's why we're in the position we are in today. So that basically was his argument for that. The strongest currency will survive. All right. And then the last point that he really focused on, which is the one that everybody talks about with Bitcoin and the most important aspect of it, is that it requires no trust. So all the other currencies require trust. With the US dollar, you're trusting somebody. So you're trusting a bank to hold your money. You're trusting the government to uphold the dollar as the best currency, the most used currency, the standard for the world. So you're at the beck and call of somebody with all the other currencies. However, Bitcoin, there is not that problem. Everything is based on the individual and the collective of individuals. You have access to your money. No one can seize it. No one can do anything to it unless they have your seed phrase, which, is a whole nother thing. If they have your seed phrase, I'll say it in almost every video, like, you're screwed. But other than that, there's no trust in another entity. And that's one of the main parts of the book. I will say, in my opinion, I think that the lessons on money in general and how it works is the best part of the book, even though, and he spends a lot of time on that, a lot of time on understanding money, but the Bitcoin part is at the end and it's not as detailed. And I do personally think that the money aspect is the most important and the most interesting. And like I said in the beginning, having a mindset about Bitcoin is very important. It just is. As with any kind of investment in general or anything that, has some risk, you're going to have to feel very strongly and have conviction that you are doing the right thing, because it's so easy to get discouraged when you see a plummet, which is happening right now with Bitcoin. It's dropping. The value is dropping, but you have to know that it's temporary. And just a little side note, that means it's on sale. If you want some, this is a great time to get some, okay? But yes, you really do have to feel strongly about it, okay? So I really do suggest this book. I do have a link to it in the description. I keep that book on the description for all of the videos because I just really believe it's the best book. And I just want to point out that the place I get the book, or the place I recommend to get the book from, is from an organization where your dollars go further, for little bookstores instead of Amazon, who is part of the problem of our society. So you just support a little bookstore, and it doesn't cost you more money because the pricing is pretty much the same. Any hoots. I just wanted to put that part in it. But yes, I really do recommend this book. It's really, really great. I'm 99.2% sure that I got every point I wanted to get across on this paper. But just in case, I'm going to look down right now and make sure that I made all the points that I wanted to make. So let me look. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, yes, pretty much everything. The only other thing that I didn't say on the last point about it being trustless is that there is a fixed supply, and that is one of the main ways that it is more worthy of being the standard instead of everything else, because there's only 21 million of them, and with gold, very, very rare, but in the end, more of it can be mined somewhere, and it is. So that was the last point that I left out. Okay, so that's it. If you have any questions or any comments about the book or any lessons that were talked about in this video, I'm trying to grasp my words. If there's anything in the video or the points that the book makes that you have an opinion on, make sure that you comment that as well. Other than that, have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.